Good morning, Magic players. Welcome to Not So Serious Magic, the show where two not-so-serious Magic players are seriously trying to talk about Magic. I'm Adam Bush, and as usual, my co-host and compadre, Landon Liberator. Landon, how are you today?
Well, I'm great, Adam, and let's talk about some Magic. But before we do, if you could be serious for a moment here, and you could follow us on Twitter at NotSoSRSMagic, Facebook by the same name, YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you like to listen to your podcasts, we'd be mighty thankful. So, Adam, it's a rainy day outside. It's a little bit sad, but I think we could be happy talking about some Magic the Gathering.
Good day to stay inside and play Magic or even talk about it.
Exactly. So, I think before we get started today, we got a little feedback from some of our listeners and saying, well, what do you guys? What's your guys' history? What do you guys do? And talk to us about that. So, give me a little background on you. What are some of your accolades, Adam?
Accolades?
Yes.
Well, I started in the 90s, not alpha, beta, but I was in a town of 600 people.
Whew.
So there was no Magic scene. There was none of that.
Right.
And I would have to go over to Dubuque, Iowa,
Whoa.
and buy some cards and just randomly. So I had some cards random, had no idea how to play, nobody to play with really, just a couple friends.
Sure.
Got out of it in college, on and off again, taught somebody after I got out of school at work, and then probably didn't touch it for 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Moved into an apartment. We had a fire drill. Met our neighbors outside. He started talking, yeah, I used to play Magic. I'm like, I used to play Magic.
No
Let's
way.
play again.
That's
this is
awesome.
right around Theros, and then he introduced me to Commander. I'm like, I am 1,000% into this again. And I've been pretty invested in it since then. Not super competitive.
Sure.
Played in some GPs. The SEG was just up here this summer.
Okay.
Did pretty well for a while down in Shakopee when there was a store down there for a bit.
Okay.
And did pretty well at some game days. Drew for a top seed in the final one of the I forget what it was, but I did okay, and then since having a kid, I've kind of fallen back again.
Well,
but I like playing. I like Commander mostly. I follow Standard. I like watching Modern and Legacy.
okay.
How about you, Landon?
Yeah, so I kind of the same startup, definitely. So I started playing in about the end of cons, where cons rotated, and we had the BFZ and Oath Standard. So that's kind of where I grew up in. I just had friends. I had friends that were like, hey, man, come play this game. And I was like, that's such a weird, nerdy game you're playing. I don't understand why you want to play that. And, I started playing it. And that was it, man. And that was actually when I started playing D&D as well.
Nice.
Sidebar, but yeah. That was kind of where I began my Magic career. And then I kind of it shut up from there. I mean, I began playing Standard, and after I played that for a couple 3 months, I started trying to play Modern a little bit and failed miserably, like I'm sure we probably all have done.
Yeah.
And from there, I actually got certified as an L1 judge in June of last year. So I've been doing that for a hot minute here, and I really enjoy that. Now I do play Modern pretty competitively. I have Hollow One and a couple other weird janky decks, and I actually
the best decks.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I kind of dipped into Legacy a little bit too. Now I play a little Legacy on the side with some more budget stuff. So yeah, I really enjoy Legacy a lot because it's such it feels like a pretty diverse meta, and so I really enjoy playing Legacy because it's just all the cards, it's all the crazy things that we started this game with, and so I mean that kind of is vintage, but vintage is for people who have obscene amounts of money in their bank account, which is not where I'm at right now, but that's okay. I mean, maybe someday. So, yeah, so definitely. So to segue into that, it's actually kind of a good segue we got here. So what are some old decks you had? Some old decks you had when you were learning, and how have you come from there?
Oh, man, my favorite, and I still love this deck. I think I still have it kind of built somewhere in my Magic mess.
Yep.
It was a Prodigal Sorcerer deck.
No way.
Good old Tim. It was Prodigal Sorcerer. There was that Razor Fin guy that was blue-red, tap to deal damage. It was Thornwind Fairies. Nothing but those guys and counter spells.
That's awesome.
And it was so much fun and so
great.
annoying. But it was one of those things where I didn't understand the rules.
Yeah.
I thought I had to tap to deal the damage only during combat.
Right.
And so then my friend, he countered it by playing a Blinding Angel deck, which says if it hits you, you can't have a combat step on your next turn.
Oh.
Well, I can't use my sorcerers and things now. What do I do? So that was one of those things where.
But it wasn't actually a counter because it wasn't combat. Or you like, I mean, like, right?
I had no idea it wasn't combat.
Well, there you go.
That was me not knowing how to play Magic and learning the rules. Like, it was years later. It's like, oh, I can do this at any time I want, not just at
instant
I could
speed.
block with him and then do something. What? I could just kill this blinding angel before it hits me.
That's amazing.
My other favorite deck was just the worst.
Okay.
But it was the first time I ever bought singles. It was based on Coalition Victory, which is 3 white, blue, black, red, green. You win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color.
Right. Got it. So this is an 8-cost sorcery.
Sorcery.
From Invasion.
In a 5-color deck.
Right.
It was awful. It had a lot of things like Wayfaring Giant, which is 5 white. Wayfaring Giant gets +1/+1 for each basic land type among lands you control. So it only gets to 6, 8 at most for 6 mana.
Oofta.
It was awful, but I kept trying it. It never worked. It was way too slow, even with my group of friends who didn't know how to play.
Good.
But it taught me about mana bases eventually. And
right.
I think I was also running more than 60 cards, trying to get enough of the right mana and things in there.
Yep.
And I also didn't know like a red, blue, gold card counted as red and blue for that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But how about you?
So when I started playing, I actually started playing Boggles. That was my first modern deck. I kind of built it, and it was a really good time for me because I liked aggro a lot. And so I started there, and that was kind of an interesting place to start because a lot of folks don't understand the nuances of Boggles. So kind of the things that most folks do is they kind of run out all their Boggles, and they like I said last time, it's kind of this cardboard crack type feel where you have. Yeah. You have all these amazing, Boggles, and you can hook them up with all these cool enchantments and woo woo woo, and it gets crazy, and you want to play as much as you can, and then you get board wiped. And so I remember a specific event that happened. I was playing Boggles. This is actually just before I switched my Boggles deck to my Hollow One deck. Maybe because of this instance, I don't know. But I was playing against Azorius Control in a local tournament, a local modern tournament, and it was brutal. It was really, because I got him down to about, I think, 1 or 2. And then he settled the wreckage, like 3 of my creatures.
Oh.
And then next turn was Teferi, and next turn was Karn, and all this advantage that was happening. And I lost because there was just no way for me to get around then he was stabilized. He was able to get back, and it was just the worst. It was like if I would have held back, or if I would not have casted all of my creatures in my hand, I'd have been okay. I probably would have been able to come back a little bit more from that situation. So that was a big learning time for me, is figuring out how to play aggro properly, because like I say, it's not just as easy as boom boom boom, play my creatures and get them all fat and swing in. That's what people think. It's really not. There are some subtle nuances. People play to defeat aggro, right? Aggro is like the deck that people are like, all right, because either you're playing control, you're playing aggro, or something in between, right? But most folks will have at least some strategy based toward defeating aggro, right? So learning how to play aggro to kind of counter defeat, like it is weird, like counter your counter type thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you have to think very kind of deep into it if you really want to play aggro well. That was kind of my first aggro deck. I mean, I had hoopy, kind of weird, standard, like didn't know how to play Magic, like you say, like 5-color weird stuff. And my second starter deck here was I actually played Delver, a mono blue Delver in Pauper. A great format, great format. It's just such a good time, and it brings the playing field, to a very equal spot. We can all kind of play on the same level with Pauper. I love Pauper, but I played Delver because I wanted to learn how to play control. I played mono blue, so I wanted to learn how to play control better, and I did. I got taught very quickly that. Like we talked about last time a lot, actually, it's the tempo of things. How knowing that, okay, so I could counter that Reanimate, or I could counter that, Exhume, for that silly creature that gets you a land, or I could wait until you play your Ulamog's Crusher, right, and counter that Ulamog's Crusher. You know what I mean? So it's kind of knowing, like, well, this card sucks, but it's not going to suck as much as the card that they play to win the game, right? so that was a big thing. I also learned that Delver is playing Delver is weird because it's aggro but not aggro. Like Delver is put into a shell that is control, so you have to think about both things. You have to think about, swinging out with my Delvers and also keeping back lands for control, and it's weird. But it's a cool thing to learn because some counter Magic decks have an aggro aspect, a very small aggro aspect. So learning how to like play to that is a big deal. But yeah, it was great. It was a good time. Way to learn.
Delver's a fun deck.
Yeah, definitely. We have Guilds of Ravnica approaching here, and so with that, let's talk about what we're happy to see rotate.
Well, I like watching Standard. I would like to get back into it more. What I'm most happy to see is probably anything in mono red or the red black aggro or any of those variants. They've just been very good for too long.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same game over and over. I like watching Modern and Legacy more because it's always different.
Right.
Like there are top decks like Tron and Humans, but you're going to see some other weird things like that Blue-Red Wizards that's coming around a little bit.
Yeah, I know, that's been great.
Humans itself is fairly new, and Hollow One is fairly new.
Seriously, definitely.
A year or two ago when Death Shadow all of a sudden appeared out of nowhere.
Hardened Scales.
Yeah, Hardened Scales, brand new. But Standard has just been 50% red aggro.
Right.
Everything else.
Yep.
But I like the individual cards. I'm really glad Wizards has been trying new things. Like Exert is really cool. I'm glad they're exploring some of these areas. I'm just kind of tired of seeing these over and over again.
Yeah.
Heart of Kirin, another thing. I like playing blue, so I have no heart.
There you go.
Again, vehicles, awesome design space. Really excited they pushed that. Sad they probably feel burned by Looter Scooter.
Yeah.
And they're going to be super cautious on those. But that was just a really cool thing to try out. Same with energy. Like Servant of the Conduit and Aether Hub probably helping some of those greedy mana bases. Energy was a really cool mechanic, but they had the balance wrong, and they didn't print any answer to it. They really weren't printing answers in general when that first came around.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of feedback. We don't have any removal.
Right.
And way too efficient.
They just printed Sun Cleanser.
Yeah, way too late.
A little late here in M19.
Yeah, so. When I first saw Energy, I'm like, oh, they're going to have like a Steal Energy card, and they didn't. And Mark Rosewater even said, like, no, we want you to play with Energy. I'm like, people can still play Energy, but we need that safety valve, and they didn't have any of that.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Now that we have these new cards coming into Standard, they're also going to be in Modern. Mm-hmm. What are some that you think are going to be in Modern that aren't named Assassin's Trophy?
Nothing. Yeah, nothing. no.
The end of the segment.
Right, cool, perfect. Got it. There's a couple options here. There are a couple surefire includes, like auto includes here, I think, and then there are a couple that I have that are kind of more of a guess on my part. So an auto include I think we're gonna have Pelt Collector. Pelt Collector, if you're not familiar, is one green for a 1/1 creature elf warrior. The text says, whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, if that creature's power is greater than Pelt Collector's, put a +1/+1 counter on Pelt Collector. And then it also says, as long as Pelt Collector has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Trample. So right now it's so in the online game, it is seeing minimal play in like red-green zoo type decks. But if you notice, it's an elf, right? So that's a problem right there. We got an issue. We got to call Rosewater and tell him this is an issue because elves taking elves that are not only cheap but that build themselves up is a no-brainer. I mean, really, if you think about playing this on turn 1, right? And then you're playing something like in elves, a Nettle Sentinel. Right, on turn 2, or you can play Heritage Druid, I think, has a higher power as well, or I mean, even in Azuri, right? That's going to be things that are going to be pumping this Pelt Collector until it's got 3 +1 counters on it, and you got a 4/4 Trampler for 1 mana, right? I mean, this is value train is coming into the station, big time on this one, and I like it. I like it a lot. What do you think about it?
It's pretty sweet. Yeah, I think elves, they're gonna love it. Not a human, doesn't help there, doesn't help Tron.
I would say they're definitely in the biggest deck in the meta right now, the Warrior Tribal deck in Modern.
Yeah,
it's going to see a lot of play.
Khan's really shot that up there.
A lot of play. But yeah, that's kind of my first auto include that I think will be an auto include here for a lot of players. And my second auto include is actually, get this, not a rare.
No, it's not.
It's actually called Creeping Chill. Creeping Chill is 3 and a black for a sorcery. Creeping Chill does 3 damage to each opponent, and you gain 3 life. Not that great, right? Not very. I mean, 4 mana for a sorcery that does 3 damage, for drains for 3. It's just kind of eh. However, when Creeping Chill is put into your graveyard from your library, you may exile it. If you do, Creeping Chill deals 3 damage to each opponent, and you gain 3 life. So that's the part. That's the part that we're caring about right now. This is actually seeing a lot of play online, doing well in like mostly Dredge. A lot of Dredge players are playing this because the value is ridiculous. Being able to just exile it, just free exile. Because the milling is happening so often, the dredge is happening so often, and even discardy type decks, kind of the weird Vengevine or Hollow 1E type decks are sometimes playing this as well. Usually they're 4-ofs, and it's actually great. It's like I say, it's great in the value train. It's gaining that 3 life against and draining for 3 life against most of your decks is a great advantage that you're not gonna want to pass up. I mean, it's free, right? I mean, what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's going to stop Modern Mill in its tracks. I mean, that's a huge deck right now, right?
Yeah.
No.
No. But yeah, I mean, this is actually kind of my prediction for your your value train. I buy this. I think right now these are at what, like 80 cents maybe, not even like 60 cents. Buy a few of these up. Just trust me here. These are gonna get good. These are gonna get good. Next on the list for things I think they're gonna be played in Modern except or not Assassin's Trophy. Beast Whisperer. Beast Whisperer. I can say that. It's easy.
Yeah.
Beast Whisperer is 2 mana and then 2 green, so 4 total, for a elf druid. It's a 2/3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card.
Green is getting so much card draw.
Hang on a second. Isn't that card called Glimpse of Nature? Like that 1 mana sorcery that says whenever you cast a creature spell this turn, draw a card. I think that
sounds like a thing.
That's a problem. That's got to be wow. All right, so ban list. This is ridiculous, and it's an elf. That's my biggest issue here. I mean, that's just. Imagine this turn real quick for me, right? We got turn 1, Pelt Collector. Turn 2, you have maybe a Elvish Visionary or something. Turn 3, we got that nice what's that one elf that taps for 3 green. You can tap elf for 3 green.
Yeah.
So you get that 3 green in your pool plus the 1 mana you already have from your land. You got a Beast Whisperer on turn 2 or 3, right? And I mean, it's ridiculous. And then you're casting creatures, drawing cards, refilling your hand. It's dumb. It's a problem. This is gonna be huge. I mean that. Ridiculous type stuff right here for drawing cards. And, hey, like I say, that Druid Tribal deck we see in Modern so often, that Druid Tribal is going to get up there. I don't know, it's an Elf Druid, so.
What I'm seeing is I played against an Elf Commander deck not that long ago.
Oh, no.
He made infinite elves, infinite mana. He lost because he forgot to give his stuff haste.
That's an issue.
Yeah, and I had just enough unblockable stuff to kill him, but just that drawing cards off of all of those, like he has 20 elves entering the battlefield that turn. That's a lot of cards. Mill yourself.
Right. Seriously. Yeah, that is going to be, I think it's going to be great. I really do. So those are kind of my big winners. I have a couple of maybe, perhaps winners. One of my perhaps winners is going to be Mausoleum Secrets. So Mausoleum Secrets is 1 and a black for a instant with Undergrowth. Search your library for a black card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So there's a lot of text here. Let's go over it. So search your library for a black card. Right.
Nice
so there's your limit right there. That's why this card got printed, because there is a limit to it. A black card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Okay. Sure. So I'm seeing this getting play in what, like maybe Hollow 1, Dredge again,
yeah.
right? And searching out. The thing is, you got to find the targets. I'm not sure what we're targeting in those decks. Maybe your Gurmag Angler if you really want to get that damage in. Maybe your Tassiger.
It's not just creatures;
again,
it's any card.
That is true.
Get some
That is
removal.
true. That's true. Yeah, you're in
Some
that
hand disruption if you're afraid of graveyard hate.
Yeah, if you're in that pinch and do that Thought Siege real quick, that's an option as well. And it's only 2 mana. That's the cool part. So, you get that early game discard, 1 mana, 2 mana discard spells on yourself. Talking about maybe, in the red-black decks you have something like Burning Inquiry, or you have, Goblin Lore type of things on turn 1 and 2 to get those cards in your graveyard. And then you can cast this on turn either 3 or later if you need, for the more value train, right, to get what you need. So, it's all right. I think it's good. I do think it's good. And instant speed is also very worth your time there.
Yeah.
Worth noticing. So, I think it's all right. I do. Yeah.
Do you think it's something you'd keep in the deck after, like, it's game 2 and they're going to bring in all their dredge hate and their graveyard hate?
I don't know. I think that in that situation, the answer is probably no. It seems like bad sense to leave in something that so heavily relies on your graveyard in that situation. So taking it out for something maybe like a Collective Brutality or some other type. I guess if you're playing something like like Vintage, you bring a Vampiric Tutor. But no, I don't know. I think definitely you sideboard it out in game 2. But what you bring in for it depends on your deck. Honestly. So yeah, definitely. That's my 4th option. The 5th option we have here for cards that are going to see play in Modern. Is Risk Factor. So this is very close to my heart. Very, very close to my heart because I love browbeat type effects, and this is that. So Risk Factor, we talked about it last time, but just to refresh, is 2 and a red for an instant. Target opponent may have Risk Factor deal 4 damage to them. If that player doesn't, you draw 3 cards, and then it has Jumpstart as well, which is that casting it for its normal cost, except you discard a card as well as part of the cost. So yeah. This I like. I like this, and I'm not sure where it fits.
I absolutely see this going in Burn.
You think so?
I think so because Burn only wants like 3-4 lands.
Sure.
If they draw any extras, they can then jumpstart it.
Yeah.
Even aside from the damage, Burn gets rid of their hand so fast.
Right.
I'll take the 3 cards.
Definitely, and as well, it's important to note that I believe in most Burn decks, their 4 damage outlet is going to be that, what is it?
Boros Charm.
Correct. Yeah, Boros Charm. So I think that's their only 4 damage spell. I'm pretty sure they have a lot of 3 damage spells. They have Bolt, they have Lava Spikes, they have, what's the other one they have? That Searing Blaze as well. So they have options. But this is like their only 4 mana thing, and that's one of their only 4 mana options, 4 damage options. So that's worth noting as well, I think. So let's talk really fast here about it's this quick subtopic on my sheet. Whoa.
Yeah, we just had the Banned and Restricted announced yesterday. Standard, no changes because rotation is happening, so nobody cares.
No one knows.
But no changes in Modern or Legacy. Is there anything that you think should have been banned or even unbanned? They recently unbanned Jace.
That's true.
Everybody's pushing for Stoneforge to come back.
Yeah, that is true. So here's what I think. As far as bannings are concerned, bannings happen because a card's either too overpowered or it's breaking the meta in the sense that it is the meta, right? So those are the 2 things. So as far as bannings are concerned, no, we're good. I think that right now banning is the last thing Wizard wants to do. There's a lot of controversy going around about a lot of different things. So for them to ban something that doesn't need to get banned, it's just it's not the option they want right now. So that's where I am with that. As far as unbanning things, I think that Stoneforge could come back.
No, really?
I think so. I think that it's Stoneforge is great. Everyone knows Stoneforge is ridiculous for that Batterskull. We all know, but I think that it's all right. I think that the meta has kind of evened out since that ban was kind of put in place. I think that it is very doable to bring back Stoneforge, at least for a little bit, and see how things go. They can reban. It's happened. Deathrite has gone in and out for a little while here. They can reban, so I think it's okay. I think they can let it out, let Stoneforge out of its cage for a hot minute, and we can see how it goes. Now, as far as things that I kind of wish were banned, I personally very much dislike KCI.
I do too.
I don't like it because KCI is extremely confusing, even to someone like me who is pretty adept with how triggers work and how the general game of Magic works. I'm pretty okay with it. It confused me for a long time because it's so. First of all, there's so many ways for them to win. There's a lot of ways for them to win. through. I mean, usually it's all through one thing, but getting there is different each time. So it's very confusing for a lot of new players, and that's frustrating. I mean, I don't want to win Magic a game against you when you don't understand.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of where my issue is with that. And yes, it's proven to be not too powerful. We can see that. We've seen that it's not fantastic. It kind of shut up for a second, and now it's kind of out of the meta for the time being. So we can see that, and that's all right. But yeah, no, I'd be okay if that went away for a long time.
I think people have discussed if you took Ancient Stirrings, you hit Tron and KCI. Ever thought about that? Slow it down a little bit, maybe?
The answer to that question is, it's like saying, oh yeah, riding bikes is bad, therefore let's take away bike locks, right? You don't need a bike lock to ride a bike. It's just nice. You know what I mean? So,
you think they'll find other answers?
And even if they don't, that's banning a card that isn't the Stirrings isn't the thing that's breaking it, right? The Stirrings isn't the thing that's saying this is Stirrings isn't overpowered. Yeah, it's fantastic, but it's not overpowered. And Stirrings also isn't, being played in every deck and being, picked out specifically by players in their decks to strategize against, which is the two criteria for bannings, right? So we're not meeting those things, and I don't think it should get banned. I really don't. I mean, yes, you're right. It is what's boosting and giving that nice, catalytic kind of weird, or not? Is it catalytic? The thing that kind of gives it power? I don't know.
Catalyst.
There you go. There it is. The catalyst in the deck, but it doesn't need to get banned. I don't think. Yeah. Talk about what you don't like as far as Modern is concerned. I like this a lot. You talked about this earlier. I like this a lot.
Well, a little bit from my story earlier, how I got back into Magic. So suddenly, about that time, there was a Modern GP up here, and no idea what Modern was. So I'm gonna go play this. I'm excited. I built this I thought it was awesome. It was ramp into these giant Hydras, and I'm going to just crush you in the face with these trampling Hydras, super fast ones. That one from Theros that had protection from blue and haste. Get to my first round, sit down, opponent's very friendly. Turn 3, he's like, combo Splinter Twin and 2 Infinity. I'm like, how does that work? I don't understand what's happening. What just happened? Okay, I'm dead. I hate this card.
Yeah.
And so then my hatred of Splinter Twin is completely irrational based on my not understanding Modern Splinter Twin, those sort of combos at that time.
A little trauma there for you.
A little bit of a trauma. My Modern GP was not good. I went 0-3, dropped. I had a friend who was a very stupid friend. He was playing Slivers. He was doing pretty well. He missed A2 by a game or two, but he had a good time. He was very happy with it.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I'd rather have seen Splinter Twin than Slivers, though. Slivers are the worst.
Yeah, true.
So I'm happy Splinter Twin's banned. I know a lot of people have been talking about Splinter Twin's probably safe, but
yeah,
I think once they banned that, it really opened up
definitely
the Modern meta a lot.
It was very oppressive, if you will, in that time. So
they should try to buy up every copy of Twin and burn them.
Hey, not a problem. I'm on board. So as far as Legacy is concerned, you mentioned that a little bit. Nothing's breaking Legacy right now.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, a side note, cool thing to mention, Legacy is actually there's still some weird fringy decks winning Legacy tournaments.
Nice.
I mean, this is awesome. I mean, we see things like, in SCG Baltimore, the Legacy Legacy tournament that happened there just recently. A deck that is actually not super prevalent, which is Mono Blue Painter, which uses Painter's Servant to actually make all of the cards blue and then Milio with Grindstone, which is fantastic. That deck actually won over a very, very solidified deck in the meta, which is Lands.
Yeah.
Lands have been there for a long, long time. So these weird things you see are happening in Legacy it's a thing. I mean, like, decks are doing very well in Legacy, so that aren't even the main meta. So anyways, all that to say, I think that Legacy is just fine and does not need to get banned at all.
Sounds good. Now, last week, you asked me how I would misplay some things. Today, I'm going to ask you how you would misplay some things in Standard.
All right.
All right. The situation is Esper Control versus Blue-Black Midrange at Nationals back in July.
Okay.
All right. Turn 3, Game 1, the Blue-Black Midrange player casts Doomfall. And look at your opponent's hand, and exile a non-land creature. He has a Siphoner on board. What he sees is a Champion of Wits, Teferi, and 2 Yohani's Expertise, which is -2 to all creatures.
And then you can cast them for free, right?
Yep.
For 3 mana or less? Okay. Okay.
and a couple lands.
Okay.
So what do you take?
So you said that he had what in hand? Sorry.
He has a Siphoner on board.
Okay.
In hand, he has another Siphoner and a Supreme Will.
Interesting. And the other player he saw revealed was 2 Yohani's expertises.
So he casts a Doomfall. He sees a Champion of Wits, a Teferi, and 2 Yohani's expertise that he can take. Those are the only takeable things.
Okay. So interesting. All right, and he can counter. Well, he can counter whatever he wants. How many? Oh, okay. How many lands does the other player have? A lot of lands, late game.
It's turn 3.
Oh, turn 3.
Turn 3.
Turn 3. I don't know. I think in that situation, I would probably take the champion because I don't want him to have that card draw. That amount of card draw is not what I want early game, and the champion costs 3, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I would say that would probably be my thing. I would take because he can deal with Teferi. He can counter Teferi if he leaves mana up because Teferi can't come out for 2 more turns.
Mm-hmm.
So he can counter Teferi fine, and he doesn't care. I mean, Siphoner getting killed sucks, but it's not that in the long term. It's not that big of a deal, and nothing free to cast out of his hand except for the champion in that situation because you can cast that for free. So it feels like in the situation the champion is just the best bet all the way around.
You are on point. And this was the easy question. He took the champion because it get exiled,
right?
So it can't have the
sure. I forgot about that too. Yeah.
And then he uses Supreme Will on Teferi when it attempts to come down in a couple turns, and he doesn't play his second Siphoner because he knows those.
There you go.
Expertise are there, and not taking the expertise, like, well, it's dead anyway. There's 2 of them.
Feels like a very good Doomfall. That was a great Doomfall for him.
Great Doomfall. He won that game fairly handily.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Most of these, you're always the blue-black player.
Good.
That was where all the decision-making really came in.
Okay.
Esper Control has been going land go for several turns. He cycled a land once.
Okay.
He has 8 to 10 open mana.
Okay.
You've also been playing land go for a while, but you have a Torrential Gearhulk in hand.
Okay.
The only target in your graveyard is Supreme Will, which lets you dig through the top of your library a little bit.
Yep, like Anticipate kind of.
When do you think you would try to play that?
Interesting question. So, if he has a full hand of cards, right, then, which I assume he does, he's been saying land go, right?
Yeah, he's got, Esper Control is about 8 to 10, I think.
Okay.
Blue-black was about the same.
Okay. So then the answer to that question is if I'm going to be casting into a counterspell, right? We all know that everyone has counterspells here. Then my best bet is to cast into either to cast during his upkeep before draw, so before he has a chance to draw yet another counterspell. It's always a better option. Or I could always cast on his end step after he's casted as many things as possible. But that requires me waiting. So I'm not sure if you're saying that I can't wait until then. If I had the option to wait until he's played his thing, he's played his big thing, he's played his Scarab God.
How many turns do you go land go? An extra piece of information for you. You also have Scarab God in hand.
Oh, interesting. So I don't know. At that point, I guess I would say, well.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. He waits like 3 turns.
Okay.
And then he goes to bait an Essence Scatter with his Gearhulk because that's a huge threat too. That's a 5/6. Right.
That's true.
He baits out an Essence Scatter at end step.
Okay.
That gets countered. Then he plays his real threat because there's been a couple Essence Scatters, like 1, maybe 2 other Essence Scatters. So he plays the odds at this point, throws down his real threat on his turn, Scarab God.
Sure.
With enough open mana to activate if he wants to. Because he's assuming Esper has a Vraska's Contempt. So he's like, I'll play this.
Wait to activate until the Vraska's comes down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see, the problem with that question that I had was that it's such a conditional how you feel, buddy, kind of thing. Like, feeling brave guy. Like,
who's going to make that move? It's like,
right.
What do you have in hand? But it was interesting. They were both super patient. And it's a thing that you really have to learn as a control player.
Seriously.
All right, last one. And this one, I was super amazed at what happened here, and I would have been dead and lost the finals here.
Okay.
All right. Blue-black control has Scarab God on the board
and
a flipped Blood Flask, which lets him then tap the land, sack a creature to gain life. Both players are at low life because they both have had Blood Fast out. They're like 4 and 8 respectively. Blue-black control has 1 Siphoner on board. Esper goes to place Vraska's Contempt on Scarab God. He can sack it to the Bloodfast. He has enough mana to activate Scarab God, but he'd have to use his Bloodfast, or he lets it go. What do you do in this situation?
Make sure I have all the things right here. So you said that he has a Scarab God and a Bloodfast if he wants to sack it.
It's a flip one. It's the Temple.
Oh, so he can gain life.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay. And he has enough to activate Scarab God though.
Yep. So he has just enough to activate Scarab God, but it's going to use up his Temple, the Bloodfast flip.
Interesting.
And there is only a Glintstave Siphoner in the graveyard.
How much life is the other player at?
The other player is probably like 6 to 8.
6 to 8. Interesting. So if he exiles, if he just talking it out with you, if he exiles or if he activates right and exiles and gets the 4/4 black zombie, then
he'd have 6 toughness or 6 power on the board.
Right, he'd have 6 power on the board, and Scarab God would come back to his hand next turn. He could play it, and then the opponent would lose 1 life, and he could swing in for 6.
If he activates Scarab God, he's going to lose Scarab God because it's going to
get
exiled.
Because the Vraska's Contempt.
Yes.
It's exiled. You're right. Interesting. So maybe no, he can't activate and then also sack the zombie either because he uses the Temple. I don't know. That's interesting. I guess I don't know. In that situation, I think if it was me, here we go, misplaying it. I would probably sack the Scarab God to the Temple so I can get it back and play it next turn. That way I have more options. Continuing on, I have a continual threat. That's what I would do.
So what he does is he activates for the Siphoner.
Okay.
He uses up all his efficient use of mana, was the thing we mentioned last week. But what he's doing is he's playing around Teferi. He knows or assumes that Teferi is going to come down on the next turn.
Okay.
That does happen. That forces Teferi to tuck the token Siphoner.
And not draw cards.
Interesting. That also taps out the control player. The blue-black control player then gets to Doomfall and take a threat. And allows him to have open mana for a Gearhulk with a negate in hand.
Wow.
If he sacks, the Teferi gets to draw cards. The Siphoner would have been an extra card draw. He would have gotten 2 more cards. He has just enough, and it kept the pressure on. He wins the game because of this play.
That's so interesting.
It was really cool. I would have done the same. I would have sacked it, gotten my Scarab God back.
Right.
But him playing to deal with that Teferi, because the Siphoner has menace, it punches the Teferi.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
wow.
Yeah,
that's
sacks,
so interesting.
It was a really good one. I was like, you're seeing these 3 steps ahead.
I guess that's why we're not pro players.
Exactly. Once again, not pro players.
Right. How would we misplay that? Look at that. So our next topic is a couple of tips for some newer players. So our tip for this week is go draft.
Or get some friends, buy a box, go draft with some friends, or each of you buy 3 packs, whatever.
Exactly.
Just go draft. I mean, it seems scary that you've got to make these quote-unquote quick decisions and evaluate these cards, but that's good. You want to learn how to make these faster decisions and really evaluate these cards.
Exactly. And actually, it forces you to evaluate how good a card is, right? So we all started playing, we all played that Savannah Lions, right?
Yeah.
That 2 mana 2/1 or that 1 mana 2/1 or whatever it is. It's just pretty okay.
Yeah.
You know, that vanilla creature that does stuff and it's all right. And it forces you to evaluate. It says, wow, actually, this 2 mana 2/2 with lifelink is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I mean, in limited, it's pretty decent. I'm going to gain a lot of life and it's going to work out well. I know it forces you to say this card, you know, this 4 mana 2/2 that's got nothing else is really not good for me here. Like, you know what I mean? It's something you don't get to do when you play constructed because you just go to the best cards there is.
Right.
That's all there is, you know?
Yeah, that's really the thing. Like when I was first playing, it's like, oh, this is a 10/10. I'm going to win. But, well, it doesn't come out until turn 8, and at that point, I'm probably dead.
Yeah.
You really have to think about that curve. What are you playing turn 1? What are you playing turn 2? What are you playing turn 3?
Yep.
And then it also forces you to balance your colors.
Yeah,
like if
definitely.
You can't play 5 colors like I tried to play. you got to focus on 1, 2, maybe 3, depending on the set.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it also makes you think about your win cons, right?
Yeah,
It makes you
exactly.
think, well, you know, I really need to make sure I play this in limited this 8 mana 6/6 with hexproof. It's gonna get me there, right? I mean, this gonna get you there. Or I'm gonna play this, a bunch of 4/4s that have trample. I mean, all these things that are what's gonna win me the game here. And really, it is creature beats.
Yep.
That's what it is limited. So you gotta think about that. Think about your bombs and what you're gonna toss in there that is weird and good. In that. So
yeah, and the last thing is, I mean, your favorite might be green, and you are looking at your pack. There's not a single green card in that pack.
Right.
So you really get forced out of your comfort zone, and maybe you learn some of the things from the other colors and how they play. It helps you to see what your opponents can be playing.
Right.
As well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like draft a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes because you're kind of like, especially players like me who play the decks that are a little more expensive sometimes. I put time and money into buying expensive things for Modern or whatever it is, Legacy, and so I'm used to having the luxury sitting in my nice recliner chair and playing my nice hollow ones, But playing Greenwheel Liberator or like a dumb whatever, like I say, Savannah Lions or whatever it might be, Squadron Hawk, right? It makes you kind of humbled, and you think, wow, this is actually how Magic started, and this is what I'm gonna play with. So, yeah.
The one last point I have is that you might like Sealed. You think it's a little more level playing field, but
Sure.
really, draft, you have a better pool by default because you're getting everybody else's packs.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true.
It's not completely lotto based where
Right.
I have the seal pool where I have 6 mythics and they're all the best. Well,
Right.
I get to pick the best card out of this pack, and you're passing me, maybe not the best, but that's a really good uncommon.
Yeah,
Fits
seriously.
into what I'm building.
Yeah.
And you get the cards plus prizes. It's a really, really solid way to build a collection.
Exactly. To end out the podcast today, we're going to talk about a cool judge call, a cool judge ruling that happened, and a couple other fun aspects about one of the newer cards in Guild of Ravnica, Pelt Collector.
One of your new favorite cards.
Exactly. So a cool situation that happened that we actually have in one of the judge Facebook forums is someone asked about Knight of Malice / Knight of Grace and Pelt Collector and how they all interact. So Knight of Malice says it's a 2/2 creature, so it's 1 in a black. Its things aren't really relevant except for the fact that it says Knight of Malice gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent. There's a Knight of Grace as well that does the opposite. So Knight of Grace is a white knight. There's a 2/2 as well, and it gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a black permanent. So the question that the player asked was, so obviously when you play your first Knight of Malice and you have a Pelt Collector on board already, you're going to be gaining that counter on the Pelt Collector because it's a 2/2 already. That's an easy portion.
Yep, because Pelt Collector gains the counter if something enters or dies with greater power.
Correct.
So you Pelt Collector 1/1, turn 2, 2/2 Knight.
Yep, and you get that counter, that 2/2. And then the next question was, if a player controls either a Knight of Malice or a Knight of Grace with its respective +1/+0 gaining permanent in play, so that the Knight will enter as a 3/2, will my Pelt Collector get that extra counter? Even though the wording says Knight of Malice or Grace gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent.
So does Pelt Collector see it entering the battlefield as a 2/2 or a 3/2?
The answer to this question is that there's really never a time when it enters that it is not a 3/2. In hand and on the stack, it's a 2/2, but once it hits play, it checks immediately for that permanent that gives it that conditional upgrade. And as soon as it sees that, before any other cards have a chance to understand what's going on, in theory, it will be a 3/2.
Nice.
So a Pelt Collector will get that lovely counter.
So it becomes a 3/3.
And just be ridiculous.
Oh, nice.
Yes. The next fun little scenario I kind of made up is there is a Tarmogoyf in play under your control, and Tarmogoyf reads Tarmogoyf's power and toughness are equal to the types of cards in graveyards. So it's like any type of
Instant
card.
sorcery, land,
Right,
creature.
Tribal.
Yeah, tribal.
Yeah, in graveyards is that much. So it has an asterisk, and then its power or its toughness is a asterisk +1.
Oops.
Yeah. So.
That was a mistake by Wizards.
Yeah. Seriously. The scenario is you have a Pelt Collector in play, and you have a Tarmogoyf in play. The Tarmogoyf right now is just a 1/2. So there's one type in graveyard. Let's say it's a creature in graveyard right now.
So Pelt Collector did not get a counter on it entry because they were both 1 power.
That's correct, yep. So they have 2 things in play, and your opponent goes to bolt Tarmogoyf. Will Pelt Collector get a counter on it before Tormorgoyf dies, because the bolt would be an extra type in the grave, so it would get a higher power and then die. So will Pelt Collector get the counter? Will it not? Will Goyf die? So Goyf in general is weird, because anyone who plays Goyf knows that Goyf actually doesn't. Well, things don't die from bolts. Things die from state-based actions, right? So what'll happen is the opponent will go to cast bolt, and when they do, the damage will be marked once it resolves on the Goyf. But before the Goyf actually dies from the state-based actions, because state-based actions are checked just before a player receives priority, the bolt will hit grave, right? So the bolt hit grave is part of it resolving. So the Goyf will be kind of buffed. So the Goyf will become a 2/3 in that situation.
Assuming the 1 power originally was not based on an instant, say,
Correct.
creature or sorcery.
Right, exactly. So when that bolt goes to grave, the Goyf will actually get buffed before the state-based actions are checked. And in that situation, there's 3 damage marked on Goyf. Its toughness is 3 in this situation, even though the bolt went to grave and buffed it. Its toughness is still 3 or less, so it will die as a state-based action. However, the reason Pelt Collector is so darn good as well is because Pelt Collector also says, instead of just entering the battlefield, it says dies as well. So when a creature dies or enters the battlefield with a power greater, it will get that counter. So in this situation, even though the Goyf got bolted and goes to grave, Pelt Collector will still get that +1/+1 counter, because
it's seeing it dying as a 2.
Exactly.
2 power.
Exactly. So
Bonkers.
It's bonkers. Bonkers is the right word, my friend. So yeah, that is. We're gonna end our episode there, I think.
Sounds good.
That concludes our super serious topics for today. We greatly appreciate you listening. We'll be back in about 2 weeks to attempt another not so serious discussion in Magic the Gathering related topics. In the meantime, you can send us questions on our Facebook, Twitter, and at notsoseriousmagic@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcasting app. From Adam and I, thank you again.
Thanks for listening.
Title of the intro music is Show Must Be Go by Kevin MacLeod. License under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0.